Steve Irwin didn't just live with danger, he built his entire world around it. From crocodiles in the wild to the spotlight that followed his rise, his instinct was always the same: protect his family at any cost. But years after his passing, a different kind of threat emerged, one he could never train for, never anticipate, and never shield him from. It didn't roar or strike, it unfolded quietly, until it reached a moment so emotionally raw that Terri couldn't finish a sentence on camera, and Robert turned away without speaking. And beneath that moment sits something even more unsettling: signs that Bindi's struggle may connect back to something Steve once warned Terri about long before any of this became public. In May 2026, the Steve Irwin Gala returned to Las Vegas, set inside the Bellagio Resort, where polished luxury met something far more emotionally layered. The ballroom was filled with conservation supporters, longtime friends of the family, and growing attention around Robert Irwin's appearance on Dancing with the Stars. Yet despite the crowd, one detail overshadowed everything else: the empty space where Bindi Irwin would normally be. Her absence wasn't announced loudly, it didn't need to be. The question came almost instantly as Robert and Terri arrived on the carpet: where is Bindi? Terri answered carefully, without theatrics. She explained that Bindi was improving but currently unable to travel, and that her condition made long-distance flights difficult. She added confidently that Bindi would be back next year, as if certainty alone could steady the situation. Then she said something unexpected: that it was easier for Bindi to stay home feeding crocodiles than to come to Las Vegas. It sounded almost casual at first, until the meaning settled in. Because feeding crocodiles isn't symbolic in their world. It refers to standing inside the Crocuseum at Australia Zoo, a 5,500-seat arena designed by Steve Irwin himself, performing in front of live crocodiles and massive crowds. In other words, she could handle extreme, controlled environments, but not the unpredictability of travel itself. Robert followed gently, adding context without contradicting the emotional tone. He explained that the zoo spans vast conservation land and relies on hundreds of staff, with Bindi playing a major role in its operations from afar. But beneath his words, the reality was clear. This wasn't about work demands, it was about health, something ongoing, something fragile. What many people still don't realize is that Bindi's health journey stretches back years. In 2023, she revealed she had been living with endometriosis for over a decade before finally being diagnosed. By the time surgery came, the condition was already severe. Dozens of lesions and cysts were removed, offering only temporary relief. By 2025, the illness returned more aggressively, coinciding with that year's Vegas Gala. It escalated into emergency surgery, where her appendix was also removed, along with additional lesions. Later, she disclosed the full extent: multiple surgeries in total and 51 lesions removed. Still, she didn't withdraw from life. By August 2025, she shared a cautious update. She was beginning to feel like herself again. Not fully recovered, not back to normal, but moving forward. That fragile progress is what shaped Terri's decision in 2026. Not absence out of choice, but absence out of protection. Yet the evening didn't remain grounded in concern alone, because as the focus shifted away from health, the atmosphere on the carpet changed. Reporters began circling a lighter thread: Robert's ongoing effort to get Terri onto Dancing with the Stars. In an instant, the tone of the night tilted, from fragility towards something unexpectedly hopeful. The gala itself held more than public figures and donors. It brought together Terri, Bindi, Chandler Powell, and young Grace Warrior, quietly seated within a legacy that now extends beyond any one generation. Later, Terri's post from the night would circulate widely, becoming one of the most shared family messages in Irwin history. She thanked Robert, welcomed Whitney into the family, and ended with a simple but striking thought: that even a zookeeper can learn to dance. At the time, it felt like a lighthearted closing note, but in hindsight, it echoed more deeply than anyone realized. Back on the carpet, the conversation eventually returned to a question that always follows this family: what would Steve Irwin make of all this? Terri answered without hesitation. She believed he would be amazed they were standing in Las Vegas at all, especially given how the city has expanded into conservation and humanitarian efforts that often go unnoticed. Her tone wasn't nostalgic, it was observant, as if acknowledging how far the world Steve once explored has quietly evolved. Robert added something more personal. He said people still stop him every day to say his father changed their lives. Not occasionally, every single day. And in that, there was both pride and pressure, the weight of carrying a legacy that never fades into the background. He said he manages that weight because of his mother. Terri, sensing the heaviness, lightened the moment with humor. She joked that Robert clearly inherited Steve's complete lack of hesitation when it comes to taking his shirt off for wildlife. The room laughed, briefly breaking the tension, but not erasing what lay beneath it. Then her tone softened again. She reflected on the last 20 years not as a straight line, but as cycles of grief and rebuilding, anchored by one date that never loses its weight: September 4th, the anniversary of Steve Irwin's death. No matter how much time passes, she said, that day never truly moves on. Robert later offered something more reflective, almost quieter in tone. He said, there are moments in the wild, especially during crocodile expeditions, when he feels closest to his father. In those environments, grief doesn't sit in the past. It shifts. It becomes something present and physical, like pressure beneath the waterline of everything he does, always there, even when he's not thinking about it. But then he drew a careful distinction between his experience and Bindi's. He explained that Bindi had more time with their father, and because of that, her grief carries a different weight, less abstract, more immediate. His own loss, he suggested, has always been defined by absence itself, not a single defining moment, but a constant condition, something that quietly exists in the background of every decision, every expedition, every appearance he makes. He also recalled a moment from his early field work in northern Australia. While capturing a crocodile, he later learned it had been tagged years earlier by Steve himself. For Robert, it wasn't just an interesting field detail, it felt like something deeper, a trace, as if his father had left behind markings in the natural world that time couldn't fully erase, allowing their work to intersect even years apart. By the time the Vegas Gala was winding down, Robert returned to a message he has repeated often since his Dancing with the Stars win: that carrying Steve Irwin's legacy is no longer just a personal responsibility. In his view, it has become something larger now, something that extends beyond family and into the next generation watching from a distance, learning from what remains. And as he stood there, Terri beside him, Bindi recovering back home, and a new generation already growing up inside the reach of khaki and conservation, one truth settled quietly beneath everything else. Steve Irwin doesn't feel absent. His presence still echoes through the Crocosseum every single day.